Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs has summoned Hungary's ambassador to Poland with the view of issuing a formal protest over Budapest's decision to grant political asylum to Poland's former Deputy Justice Minister. Marcin Romanowski, a former government official wanted in a major corruption scandal, fled to Hungary following the issuing of a European arrest warrant. A diplomatic spat followed in the wake of Budapest's move, highlighting current political differences between the two countries.
Romanowski, a former deputy justice minister, is being investigated for allegedly misusing funds earmarked for aid to victims of violent crimes. Instead of appropriating the money for that cause, he and others are suspected of financing the purchase of the Pegasus smartphone spyware. The Israeli-developed high-end software is used by intelligence services to obtain data from infected devices without the user's knowledge. The previous Law and Justice government has been accused of using the software against political opponents. Interpol put out a red notice for the former deputy minister on Wednesday. Romanowski has always held that he has done nothing wrong and refused to appear at hearings. He was arrested in the summer, but immediately released after a court found he was still politically immune to criminal persecution.
Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski posted on X that Warsaw considers Hungary's granting of asylum to Romanowski as a hostile act. The Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban fired back at the Polish officials during a press briefing, claiming that bilateral relations between the two countries were, and I quote, not good. Hungary remains conflicted with the European Union over rule of law issues, with the current Polish government's pro-European stance placing the two countries on a more confrontational footing than under Poland's previous right-wing administration.
We consider the decision of Viktor Orban's government to grant political asylum to M. Romanowski, a suspect in criminal offences and wanted under a European arrest warrant, to be an act hostile to the Republic of Poland and the principles of the European Union.
Poland has announced it is committed to respecting the decision of the International Criminal Court, which issued an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu back in November. According to the Polish daily Rzeczpospolita, this means the Israeli head of government will probably not attend the upcoming ceremony, marking the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi German Auschwitz concentration camp. Almost 1 million Jews were killed at Auschwitz. Due to the ICC's warrant for Netanyahu, Israel will likely be represented by Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar alone at the ceremony commemorating the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the camp, which is to be held on the 27th of January. Many world leaders will be in attendance, with the United States expected to be represented by either Vice President-elect J.D. Vance or Donald Trump's choice for Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Moving on to Ukraine now, Russia launched yet another attack on Ukraine on Friday morning, targeting Kyiv. The strike caused widespread damage as well as multiple casualties. A number of explosions were reported in the Ukrainian capital around 7 a.m. local time. In the Holosivsky district, at least 2 office buildings, a gas pipe, and 5 cars were destroyed as a result of the Russian attack. In addition, a fire broke out on the roof of one of the office buildings. At least 3 people were injured and 1 killed, according to the Kyiv City Military Administration. Fires were also reported in other districts of Kyiv, although fortunately no casualties or injuries were reported there. EU leaders gathered in Brussels yesterday for the final European Council meeting of the year. High on the agenda were security, economic challenges, solidarity with Ukraine as well. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy made a notable appearance, urging Europe to stay united in its support. But as the curtains close on this high-stakes summit, the question remains, did it deliver meaningful outcomes or just more promises? For the latest, we're going live to Sasha Farbach in Brussels. Sasha, good to see you again. So what's the verdict? Were there any more tangible conclusions that were presented during the meeting?
Hi, good morning, Jonas. Well, I mean, one thing to take away from this summit, it was the last summit of the year, and I think one major, let's say, technical but also appreciated value of this was that the new president of the council, Mr. Costa, who's taken over now, has very much made it a point to have certain types of draft conclusions, or rather those points that usually are drafted here during those summits ahead of time. So that meant that leaders here, when they gathered, could really focus on the details, focus on strategy. But as you rightly said, then your question is, there were no major breakthroughs here. Now, indeed, there was already certain lines that had been decided upon before, looking very much, again, support for Ukraine, looking also how to bolster the economy, certain issues on migration, touching on Syria. But all in all, if I look at this and the conversations we've had, is that it was about wait and see and wait until the new year. Now, notably, French President Macron was not in attendance. That made, obviously, certain conclusions difficult. But it was one of those final huddles for leaders here to gather, to talk, and prepare for the incoming presidency of Donald Trump. But at the same time, with Mr. Zelenskyy, he gave another chance here to speak about unity. He wants the transatlantic relationship to continue and is hopeful for Donald Trump having a positive relation with him. The same with EU leaders. But also I want to note on Hungary, as we were covering that as well today, with Hungary now passing the baton very soon, that was something very much here present, that this capital here, Brussels, is very much intent and ready for the Polish presidency starting in January. Now, surprisingly, during the conclusion, Ursula von der Leyen, Commission President, said very much that she was satisfied with what Hungary had done. Many things were achieved, including during their 6-month tenure, looking at Schengen for Romania and Bulgaria, also looking at enlargement topics, which was quite a different tone which she had said only just months earlier. And we know Viktor Orban had used the presidency very much to very much his own political gains, to, quite frankly, certain eye-raising and embarrassing instances, going to meet Vladimir Putin, also direct contact with the Chinese President Xi Jinping as well. But that will now change. Nevertheless, they struck a diplomatic tone here in Brussels, and we'll definitely have high expectations for Poland's presidency, which will start in earnest. But overall, this council, the last time to wrap up here for leaders before Christmas, but it was an achievement to have this. They gave this to Anthony Costa, one-day summit. That's something new. We'll see if that holds. The next one will be in March, and the main issues there will be about how making Europe competitive. That's a big ask. Remember the Draghi report, over 400 pages, but it is slow going to have that implemented. And that's the latest. Jonas, back to you in the studio.
Sasha Farbeck, as always, explaining the intricacies of European politics. Sasha, thank you very much for being here with us today. And moving on to our next story, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and US President-elect Donald Trump agree that the conflict in Ukraine has been raging for too long and that a fair, just and sustainable peace must be achieved as soon as possible. Scholz spoke with the US President-elect on Thursday, discussing security challenges and Russia's war in Ukraine. A German government spokesperson said the two leaders agree Moscow's war against Ukraine has dragged on for far too long. Trump has long maintained that the only way to end the conflict is by facilitating a peace deal between Kyiv and Moscow. However, he has so far provided few details about what a settlement might actually entail. During an annual event, Russian leader Vladimir Putin claimed that Russia was ready to accept compromises with regard to Ukraine ahead of the expected ceasefire talks pushed by US President-elect Donald Trump. Previous signals from the Russian political establishment had indicated a lack of desire to engage in good faith negotiations, with maximalist goals such as political realignment of Ukraine being among the demands listed.
Vladimir Putin says he's ready to compromise over Ukraine if negotiations on ending the war were held with Donald Trump. The Russian president made the comments during his annual press conference and phone-in. Trump has pledged to swiftly end the conflict, but has not provided any details on how he would achieve this. Speaking to a US reporter, Putin said he was ready to meet with US President-elect. He dismissed an assertion that Moscow was in a weak position, saying that Russia had gotten much stronger since he ordered troops into Ukraine in 2022. The event is highly choreographed, with reporters often vying for Putin's attention by waving bits of paper. In the past, the agenda has been dominated by domestic issues, such as government subsidies for families, fuel and heating costs, and road maintenance. In 2023, Putin spoke for about 4 hours.
Senior US diplomats are due to meet with members of the Syrian rebel group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham that now holds power in Damascus. The delegation from the Biden administration comes as Western governments have begun to gradually open communication channels to the rebel group and its leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa. The meeting follows similar contacts with the United Kingdom and France in the past few days. A number of countries are now debating whether or not to remove the terrorist designation on the rebel group, which overthrew Bashar al-Assad 2 weeks ago. The United States is facing a potential government shutdown within the next 24 hours after a spending bill backed by Donald Trump failed in the House of Representatives. Dozens of Republicans defied the president-elect, siding with Democrats to leave Congress with no clear plan to avert a shutdown that could disrupt Christmas travel. Trump had pressured politicians to tie up loose ends before he takes office on the 20th of January. However, members of the party's right wing refused to support a package that would increase spending and clear the way for a plan that would add trillions more dollars to the federal government debt. Government funding is due to expire at midnight on Friday. And now we're taking you to Finland, which has been crowned the happiest country in the world not once, not twice, but 7 years running in the UN World Happiness Report. Aleksandra Żaczek and her guests are on the ground to unravel the mystery behind this fascinating phenomenon.
Definitely, there are 3 major ingredients for Finnish happiness, and that is sauna, nature and family. But to find out more, I've asked Varpu Rusila, entrepreneur but also influencer, who's bringing the wider knowledge of Finnish culture to the internet audience. She's going to explain me what stands behind such a result as being the happiest nation in the world for the 7th year in a row. Varpu, why Finnish people are so happy? What is your take on that?
In my opinion, the biggest thing for Finnish people is the freedom. We're very free here. There are no limitations about what you can do from society. But the happiness report is actually based on a number of criteria, such as absence of corruption, the GDP per capita, then it's slippery.
Well, the report says nothing about the weather. It can be quite harsh here.
That's true. And actually this icy road that we're here, this is called skull weather.
All right. But I was actually talking to Finns. They were telling me about sauna. They were telling me about nature and the family.
Yes, that's indeed true. And many Finns will actually kind of feel a bit modest to say that we are happy, because in Finnish culture, it's actually a little bit taboo to say out loud that you are happy. We can be happy internally, but there's a secret saying that goes, if you're happy, you must keep it a secret.
As secret as a treasure.
Yes, indeed.
I've heard from so many Finns that sauna is very important, and we can see sauna over here as well. So what is it? What's in sauna except the hot air?
I think Finns, we are very blessed to have this dedicated place where we can actually really be somewhere physically, because it's really a place of necessity, not like luxury in Finland. And it also kind of creates this very internal perspective to your body, and also normalizing different body shapes, because with your family you go naked together in the sauna.
When we're talking about sauna, this is the main thing from Finland. What about others like sisu?
Sisu is huge. So sisu means perseverance and courage and grit all together. And many people might think that it's something that we Finns have, but actually anyone, no matter their nationalities, can tap into their sisu. And actually it's really all about tapping into. It's not like a state where you are constantly. So you go and tap into your sisu when you need that extra oomph. You really need that. And it actually means in testicles. So I personally, when I tap into my sisu, I'm going to strengthen my muscles here. Tommy, can you feel it? And there's where your sisu is.
To get your guts together.
Yes.
All right. Do you think there is like a big message, the one credo, let's say, that stands behind what you're doing on social media?
I really want to promote more Finland into the world because I think we are truly unique in terms of quirkiness. Many of the Finnish features are actually something that is not seen in other countries, and I think we should be very proud of them and even highlight them. And that's why I want to tell those things on my social media.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Varpu, for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
If you want to find out more what's happening in Helsinki, what's going on in Finland, stay tuned. We've got something special for you. That's Capital Question, so be with us.
And with Christmas just around the corner, Santa has taken off from his main office in Lapland to deliver presents to children around the world and spread the Christmas spirit. And that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.